If you are studying pronunciation, you might be thinking about, oh my gosh, there are all these things that I need to keep a focus on. And in fact, when I work with students, a very common situation that happens is we start coming in classes, we study a sound for, we might study a couple sounds. And students arrive at this point where it's like, oh, well, now I feel like I don't know anything. I feel like I'm saying everything wrong. And it can be an eye-opening experience, but it can also be a frustrating experience because it's one of those situations where the more you know, the more you find out that you don't know because it really kind of calls into question everything that you've been doing for a very long time. So if you do encounter that, and I think if you study languages at some point you are going to encounter that. Just know that it's a part of the process. It's normal. But what do we do? So we know we're interested in studying pronunciation, but we may not always feel like we know what exactly we need to focus on, or it's like sometimes I'm doing this, sometimes I'm doing this, but I don't really have like a plan. There's not really a structure, right? So what do we do in that case? And so today, I'm going to highlight for you the three things that if I only had time to target three things, these would be the three things I would do. And I hope that if you are getting started and being serious about pronunciation, these are three things that can help you arrive at a point that you are comfortable with. Good morning, guys. Good evening. Good afternoon. Welcome to your daily American English pronunciation show. Wake up, American. We're here Monday through Friday, right around 8 a.m. New York time, to make sure that you can get in your 5 to 10 minutes of practice in. That's actually not one of the steps, but kind of like a little bonus step, is that if you're serious about pronunciation, you got to make it serious, focused practice every single day. Hello to Gancham again. Great to see you. Good evening to you where you are. And Lavi is back. Good afternoon, sir. Hope you're doing okay. Studying every day really is key because you want to get to the point where it's like you're not even thinking about it. It's kind of like going to the gym. It's just like you end up at the gym. You're like, I don't even know how I got here, but it's 8 o'clock, and 8 o'clock every day I'm at the gym, so I'm here again today. Like you're not even thinking about it. It's just part of the process. You want your pronunciation to get at that point. What's up to Noman? And what's up to Enrique? Levy says it's been a while. It has been a while. I've been counting the days. I haven't really been counting the days. Like I have a little calendar over there on the wall where it's like, did he show up today? Yes. No. Yeah, I'm not doing that, but I do notice. I promise you, I do notice. Um, Again, with pronunciation, you want to end up at that spot where it's like, this is my time at 9 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. For 5 minutes, I show up and I do it, and without really even thinking about it, it's just habit. You want to get into the habit. I see a lot of students when they're starting off, they're hyper motivated. They're like, yeah, I'm going to study English 2 hours a day. I'm going to study pronunciation 2 hours. Can you imagine studying pronunciation 2 hours a day? I mean, I know some people do it. What's up to me, lad? But man, 2 hours a day? That scares me. For when I meet a student for the first time and they tell me that I'm going to go study pronunciation 2 hours a day from now on, that always makes me nervous. It makes me nervous for two reasons. It makes me nervous, firstly, because most likely that means they haven't already started doing that because it's the first time they're in class with me and they're like making their plans for their future, right? But if they were really serious about that 2 hours, they would have already been doing it, right? They would have already been studying English or pronunciation for 2 hours. It would have already been happening. So when students come to class and they tell me that, I always get really skeptical. I'm like, oh, really? Okay, why haven't we done that already? If you're serious about this, from a teacher's perspective, when I'm looking at a new student, in a lot of cases, like I'm not necessarily looking for just. I already have students. Like my schedule's full. You know, Livy says 2 hours is tiring. So like convince me why I want to take you on as a student. You know what I mean? Like they think it means they're motivated. To me, it means they're flighty because it's like I don't know how consistent you are. I just met you, dude. I just met you. Like, I have no idea what your motivation level is, but I'm already skeptical because I just know people. You know, if someone's studying for 2 hours, it's hard to sustain that. You might be able to do it for a week. You might even be able to do it for a month, but doing like 2 hours a day or something like that for like a year or like 5 years or something like that. Um, that is, man, if you can do that, cool. But you are in the rare minority of people. Um, Enrique wants to get right to tips. I appreciate that.
Questions.
Enrique's down to business. Okay. Enrique says, I'm confused. How can we know when to stress words? Is there any tips? There are tips, but um, a lot of tips you're going to see from like pronunciation textbooks. Like, for instance, if you're really interested in stress, it might be good to get a textbook. I have a book out, by the way. You can get it at fluentamerican.com. I talk a little bit about stress, but it might be good to get a book like this, like Mastering American Accent. There's like a whole chapter that just is focused on stress. But the thing is, the textbooks are going to tell you that you want to stress content words, which are like your nouns, verbs, adjectives. Okay. So maybe let's make this our first tip. So where do you begin if you want to study pronunciation? I want you to begin building your awareness of stress. Let's make that my first tip. Okay. What are you saying, Chris? Yeah, right? Like imagine. I mean, honestly, it'd probably be more than 2 hours, right? It'd probably be like 7 hours, something crazy. But yeah, it would be a lot of time. So with stress, there's things called content words. So again, adjectives, nouns, verbs, things like that. Okay. And typically, textbooks are going to tell you stress content words. You don't stress function words, which are like your articles, prepositions, things like that. Okay. The problem with this, these textbooks are operating with no context. It's in a vacuum. There's no situation. You have no idea what they're talking about. They're just giving you random sentences and then showing you what they would stress, which in the situations they give, yeah, it works. But the problem is that in an actual conversation with native speakers, anything can be stressed. Anything can get stressed in the right situation. So this is one of the tricky things with stress. So rather than looking up rules, I think a lot of times this is where things like shadowing become really helpful. Okay. Livia says you do it without knowing it. It's hard to think about consciously. Yeah, I mean, think about how you do it in your first language. You stress things in your first language. English isn't the only language that has stress. It's stress timed, but every language, is operating on some level of stress. And so if you really have struggles with stress, what I think you need to do is you need to study shadowing and start becoming aware of the rhythms of the language because stress can help you understand how the sound of the language works. I try to help with that. I've created the shadowing channel, which you can find on the homepage on YouTube. The shadowing channel on YouTube. What I've done is you listen to native speakers. I show you the words they say, and I also show you the words that they're stressing. So if you're struggling with stress, or you're trying to build up your sentence rhythm, or you're trying to just understand how stress patterns work in American English, that would be one thing you can do. Practice shadowing. Can you shadow for 5 minutes a day? You don't have to do 2 hours a day, but can you shadow for 5 minutes a day? The other thing I would say is repeat. Use the same material over and over again because each time you shadow it, you're going to notice different things. Pay attention to what happens with the stress. The other thing that's important with stress too is that a lot of students are overstressing. It's very easy to unintentionally stress things because in English, if I just go up in pitch a little bit, just a little bit, my listener will hear stress. Like if I say like it is this, it is this, it is this. Like if I say the first one, it is this. I'm very clearly stressing this, right? It is this. But if I say it is, do you hear how now I'm going up on is? So now my listener might start hearing some stress on is. It's like it is this versus it is this. So we have to be careful because just a tiny rise in pitch can have a very significant impact on the rhythm and the sound that your listener hears getting stressed and emphasized. Just to know. So be really careful with that. But stress patterns are really important. The next thing that I would say I would spend a lot of time focusing on is, not surprisingly, breath. But breath carries over to a lot of different factors. Breath is an important element of American English pronunciation because it impacts so many other things. By adding more breath and more diaphragm, your diaphragm being right around there. Okay, if you feel your diaphragm, we have videos talk about the diaphragm. The more you engage your diaphragm, the easier it is to lower your placement. It's easier for me to talk down here if I use my diaphragm. If I don't use my diaphragm, you can hear everything just shifted a little higher. But if I use my diaphragm, everything automatically just dropped a little bit there. Maybe you can notice the difference in sound right there. But breath has other things as well. Breath allows us to link things together more. Like, for instance, if I say the phrase, I don't know, do you hear how the breath just keeps rolling? I'm not saying, I don't know. That's very choppy. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Which one flows more, right? It's the one where the breath is able to keep moving. The last thing I will say about breath is that by using your diaphragm more and by engaging your breath more, you are opening up one of the fundamental differences between American English and your language. American English really loves vowel sounds. It really doesn't like consonant sounds. Okay. We want to give as much emphasis to our vowel sounds as possible. Okay, so let's imagine that we have a word like did. Okay. There's two ways. I'm going to say it two ways. See if you can hear a difference. Did. 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 So, listening to that. There you go, with the singer. Yeah, I mean, that's also something I bring up a lot. Is that with singing and music, people have music training in general have an advantage when learning English because they're aware of pitches. If they're singers, they're aware of their diaphragm and breath. So again, let's go back to our examples with did. It's like did, 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 did. What's the difference between those? Well, the first one is technically the same length as the second one. They're both taking about the same amount of time. However, in the first one, the consonant sounds are very, very strong. You can hear both those D's very heavily. Did, did. The vowel sounds very short. I, I. Versus the second time I say it, de, de. It's the opposite. The D sounds are very weak. The vowels give them more space. So, what we want to do in American English with regards to breath is we want to make sure we're expanding it. Give attention to your vowel sounds. Even, for instance, what I just said there, I said give attention to your vowel sounds. I didn't say give attention to your vowel sounds. I say give attention to your vowel sounds. I'm opening up the vowels. It's like when I'm talking, I'm trying to fill this entire room with vowels, with breath, with air, the entire space. Okay? Give more space to your vowel sounds. Students are rushing their vowel sounds, and it's causing their sentences to sound less natural. 100%. The last key concept that I would say, where do I begin if I need to study pronunciation in American English and I feel lost? Okay. Actually, before we even touch on that, let's just give some like exercises. So you're like, okay, I need to extend my vowel sounds, but how do I do that? Okay. Take like an example sentence. Let's use this sentence. We can use this sentence here. It has to become automatic. We're going to use this sentence. Okay. Thank you, Olivia, for writing this. Didn't even know this would be your exercise. So we're going to take this sentence. And you could do this with any sentence. And I would say, hey, can you just practice for a couple minutes in the morning? Can you just practice? Just do the vowel sounds and like do like little chunks. So like let's do the first two words like ah, and then can you say it has? And when you do that, when you add the full word back in, try to get your vowels to be the same length. Like ah, it has, ah, it has, it has. Then you can add a couple more. yeah, yeah, yeah. It has to become. Yeah, yeah. It has to become. Yeah, yeah. It has to become. Yeah, it. Yeah, yeah. It has to become. No, so I'm just alternating. Just the vowel sounds. Then I'm adding the consonants back in. We have to get used to that feeling of breath continuing to move and to flow. We have to get used to getting our vowel sounds to be longer no matter the situation. It has to become automatic. Is it automatic? It's like automatic, 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 automatic. Those would be the things I'll be practicing. I would say every day. Can you take one sentence, just do the vowel sounds, then add the consonants back in, just do the vowel sounds, then add the consonants back in. Just practice that for like 2 or 3 minutes. Can you do that? Make that part of your routine? Just get used to flowing. The last thing I would say is with regards to pitch. And we talked about this before. The description I commonly give is that when you're thinking about pitch, we have concepts called thought groups. Okay. Um, Thought groups are groups of words that go together before your next group of words. Okay. So, and Levy says we do that to all vowel sounds pretty much. There's always going to be exceptions and things like that. I'm always hesitant to use always. But in general, yeah. Try it yourself. Try a sentence. Make the vowel sounds shorter, make the vowel sounds longer. See which one sounds more natural to you. You might be surprised. Let's use these other example sentences from Levy to talk about pitch. So we have thought groups. Thought groups, again, groups of words that go together before your next group of words. Okay. Hello to. Yes, try it out. Let me know how it goes. What's up, man? Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's been a minute since you've been on the stream. Okay. World Friends has a question. We'll get to that when I finish the point, and then we'll head out. All right, so thought groups. Let's imagine that we have this sentence here. We have different thought groups. Do that without knowing it. Let's maybe do 3 thought groups with this. You do it. You do that without knowing it. First thought group. It's hard to think about. Second thought group, consciously. Let's maybe put that in its own thought group. Okay, so 3 thought groups here. The key to American English is you want to think of American English. You want to think of your sentences as being like an apartment. It's like an apartment building. There's many different floors. Okay. Every time you switch your thought group, you go to a different floor. Every time. It can be close. You can just go down one floor or go up one floor, but it's not the same floor every time you switch your thought group. This creates contrast. We need contrast because in American English, we don't have heavy consonant sounds. So words aren't broken up very clearly. We need pitch because we use pitch, in my opinion, as our way to separate words. It makes it easier for your listener to understand you. Okay. I know you listen to Americans and you're like, oh my gosh, these Americans, what are they doing? They're going crazy high and like really like, what are they doing? It's so fake. It's artificial. No one talks like that. But you're missing the point. We need the pitches to create the contrast, and it also conveys emotional information as well to your listener. Okay. So if I go back to this sentence, our first thought group, you do that without knowing it. First thought group. Let's go down a floor. It's hard to think about. Let's go down another thought group consciously. You do that without knowing it. It's hard to think about consciously. You do that without knowing it. It's hard to think about consciously. I can change that. We can go lower. You do that without knowing it. It's hard to think about consciously. Again, if I just sound flat across it, you do that without knowing it. It's hard to think about consciously. It sounds almost like I am a robot talking like this with not enough inflection. Okay. Pitch is key. I need you to practice pitches. How do you practice pitches? We have lots of videos on it, but you can just practice doing basic scales like this, 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 this. You can practice doing sounds like this, 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 this. Can you go higher? This, 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 this. Practice scales. Okay. You can practice just making noise like this. like practicing that. Okay, you can practice some basic pitch patterns like da 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 da. You can add in some words. Like for instance, you could try saying like this sentence here, Levi. You're just all my examples today using your sentences. So like maybe you can start high and just go down. Like we do that to all vowel sounds. We do that to all vowel sounds. We do that to all vowel sounds. You could try the other direction. Like we do that to all vowel sounds. We do that to all vowel sounds. We do that to all vowel sounds. Just trying to really, again, expand the range both ways. Okay. Yes, Levi says what we do while singing 100%. Talk to music therapists. A lot of exercises I do with students are very similar to music training and things like that. Because the reality too, this is just from a second language perspective, a lot of people are not used to doing this. It's a new thing for them. Not used to doing it at all. And then the last thing with shadowing too would be, with pitch as well, shadowing. So again, I know that it sounds like I'm just promoting my own stuff, but I make it with intention. So the shadowing videos that I have on the shadowing channel, I show you where the thought groups are so you can hear where the pitches change. So you can see where each thought group is, and then you can listen to the native speaker and be like, oh, look, they went a little higher in pitch there. Oh, they went a little lower in pitch there, and things like that. So I do all the work for you. I show you where the stresses are. I show you where the pitches are. Practice that. So those would be the three things I would be targeting. I would be targeting stress patterns. I would be targeting breath and also its connection to vowel sounds, in addition to just linking. And then I would be studying pitch. Those would be the three things I would get started studying if you feel completely lost with pronunciation. All right, let's handle World Friends question, then we'll head out. Excuse me, can you read these words later in this video? Okay? For sure. So I'll just read however they would sound natural to me doing it. I'll say each word twice. Rally, rally, shall, saw, fall, world. And we have a video that just talks about the word girl in world. All right, guys. I bothered you enough for today. I'm going to head out. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more Wake Up American. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. It's greatly appreciated. Hope you guys have a good day. Have a good night. Have a good afternoon. And I'll see you all later. Take care. Have a good day.